no one wants to hear it, but it's within the range of outcomes that you play Ohio State hard and just lose a hard fought game. But my fear is that if they do lose a football game or a couple football games, it's going to look a lot like the other losses do, because that's what they've been for 2 years. So they are better record wise than last year. I am still somewhat worried about, stagnation in the middle part of the season. And last year, it obviously ended on a high note, but I don't think you can just bank on the lights coming on again. Any thoughts on that?
I can go. I think that I agree. I mean, I think that when you look at what the offense is specifically, it is very similar to last year in a lot of ways. From Chip Lindsey on down, I think they need to be better. And the offensive line is young, and but I think one of the problems they've had overall, and this seeps into what Bryce Underwood has become, is the offensive line's pass protection has been poor. He was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks, and he did miss quite a few throws, but and they are some throws that he has made this season that he's now missing the last 2 weeks. So that's a concern. But there are also some of the throws earlier in the year that he was making when he was under pressure. And it's the same thing now. He's under pressure and maybe he's missing them. The constant there is the pressure. And you're not going to have a game where you don't get hit or there's no pressure at all in your face. But it's just too often, even against a Purdue team that's not very good at getting after opposing quarterbacks. I mean, they just kind of rotate who starts each week. They rotate who's playing throughout the game because they're trying to figure out if anyone is worth a damn on that defensive front outside of the 1D tackle that's pretty good. And you're struggling to protect against those guys. So I think that's a huge issue. And then, the wide receivers not making plays is another one for Bryce Underwood as well, where he has to kind of, be perfect, I guess, for a play to work. I mean, then you watch J.J. McCarthy against our Lions yesterday, and his first touchdown pass, right? He places it really well, but it takes a one-handed catch by the best receiver in the world to haul it in, and it's a touchdown, and the Vikings win that game close. And it was just the plays, and no one's expecting anyone to be Justin Jefferson on this team, but there just aren't the plays being made around him other than the running backs, who have pretty much saved this season and carried this team offensively throughout the year, between Justice Haynes, who's over 800 yards, and Jordan Marshall, who's now over 700 yards. Those two have combined for 18 touchdowns. It is pretty remarkable what they've done. And Bryce Underwood, I'm sure, is very appreciative of what they've done for this, what they've done. But yeah, the misses in this pass game, he misses Jamar Browder on a post route. He misses Jordan Marshall when he could have just flipped it out to him. Instead, he decides to scramble on when he's rolling out to his right. Donovan McCulley, maybe it was a little too far for him, but he drops the pass on the corner route. Jordan Marshall gets beat on a blitz pickup on a third down. There's just one thing or the other with every single pass play, it feels like. And even the completions, some of them are sidearm around a defender, and it's a high degree of difficulty. So I don't know what the fix is this late in the year, but they do have 2 weeks to work on it, I guess. So, it's going to take everybody to get that thing going.
Yeah, and the pressure, that's a disappointment, right? I thought Andrew Stuber would be better at this point in the year. I think he had 3 pressures.
Sprague,
I'm sorry. Sprague, whatever, one of the Andrews, right? So, but regardless, yeah, come on, buddy, be better. And you're a veteran at this point, right? At this point in the year, there's that cliche, you're not a freshman anymore. Don't make those freshman mistakes. Be better. Rely on your technique, your fundamentals, especially against a team like Purdue. That's not very good. You got bigger challenges coming up. So the receivers, McCulley, sometimes the body language bugs me in the, he should have made a play on the deep ball. And I'm thinking, man, you're wearing the number 1 out there. There's a standard there. It's time to meet it. So, and it just, to me, there's so much, like I said, lack of attention to detail when it comes to run fits, when it comes to not catching footballs, special teams. We can talk about that probably for 10 minutes about everything that's gone wrong there, where the guys are aligning. It's not just who you're putting out there. It's, the decisions that are being made where guys are aligning. I think he had one kick into his blocker's ass, if I'm not mistaken, or it looked like it, maybe his helmet. But the whole thing, just doesn't look right at this point. And there's still time with a bye week to fix things, but they've got a lot of work to do if they want to be where they want to be. So at the same time, you're 7-2, pretty much a product of the schedule more than anything, in my opinion. And people get mad at you for saying that, but it's kind of like Illinois last year. It's one of the reasons that I predicted that they were nowhere near a top 10 or top 15 team, like people were projecting them, because I thought they were a product of their schedule last year, and this year was much tougher. What do they have? 3 Big Ten losses already, if I'm not mistaken. So next year is going to be tougher for Michigan. So, but you can only play the ones in front of you. You got 2 more now to improve upon some things. We all, I think, we're in agreement that maybe there's a 1 in 4 chance or so of them beating Ohio this year. But last year it was probably 1 in 50 on the road. So anything can happen, especially if you improve. It starts, in my opinion, with Bryce Underwood getting his swagger back and looking like the quarterback we saw in week 1. When, man, he looked like it's like way beyond his years.
I guess my biggest question would be, like, yes, there's a bye week. There's 3 games to go. November's a very long month this year because November 1st was on a Saturday. But we're 9 weeks into the season. There were another, 3 or 4 weeks of fall camp, or 5-6 weeks of fall camp tacked on that. There was spring ball. There were all these areas where I guess I'm wondering, is there enough time to make the growth that we think they need to make, or is this simply what they are? Because I lean that this is simply what they are. And I'm starting to view the season a little bit differently in terms of, even later last year, like when it became apparent that, Sherrone wasn't going to be a one and done, but like you knew they needed to get a transfer portal quarterback. They were probably going to need a number 1 or a new offensive coordinator. They were going to need some wide receiver help. I'm starting to view it like you would view maybe an NFL team that's not going to make the playoffs. Like, hey, when free agency rolls around, I got a shopping list in my brain already. There's coaching staff things that maybe need to take a look at. I don't want to say, am I crazy for starting to think that way? Or I'm having a hard time selling this as, oh, you win 3 games, you're in the college football playoff. I can't even talk college football playoff right now because I don't know if this team's going to beat Northwestern.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And but the narrative changes, right? With 1 or 2 good wins where you look really, really good. And I will go back to the teams of the mid-90s, for example, Lloyd Carr teams that, okay, they had 3 or 4 losses early. Then all of a sudden they start picking it up and they start playing like you expected them to play. And you get to Ohio State, and not only were you expecting them to be competitive in that game, but you're expecting them to win that game, even when Ohio State was number 1 in the country. So everything can change if you see good football being played. We aren't seeing that, and I don't think that's a stretch. And people get so mad at you for being honest. We've seen in my lifetime, I've seen so many Michigan football games. Right? Good football when you see it. Bad football when you see it. When there are issues beyond just, okay, this guy is dropping passes or something like that. It's more than that. And you can sense it and you can tell. And that's kind of where we are right now with so much to fix. And again, part of that might be the injuries, guys. You have to give them credit for what they accomplished with so many guys out. At the same time, some of those ones that have been replaced, guys, have been replaced with better players. If we're being honest, in my opinion, Jake Warnera might be their best offensive lineman right now. So Gio El Hadi has got to be playing. He's got to start picking it up and playing at a higher level. Excuse me, fellas. Sorry. So I'm allergic to something here, to bad football. But regardless, it's still, their goals are in front of them. And that's what Sherrone Moore said, right? He said, okay, we're still 7-2. And so now you've got time. So hopefully we see some improvement for Northwestern that we didn't see against Purdue. Get some guys back and healthy. Doesn't look like Justice Haynes will be back. He's going to have foot surgery. But I will tell you this, Jordan Marshall playing the way that he thought he would be playing this year certainly helps. The depth hurts. It hurts the depth a little bit, obviously a lot, not having Justice Haynes in there as well, but nice to see Bryson Cudsdell step up a little bit too. So I like Jordan Marshall out there on the field. Just got to keep him healthy now. Can't afford any more injuries, fellas.
Man, the way he runs too, you're a little fearful of that watching him, the way he'll kind of like, he's trying to get his leg free, and then the way he falls, and sometimes it's like on his hand or something. It's like, just don't hurt a wrist or something like that. And when you carry 25 times in a game too, and he has done that twice this year, then you run the risk of that in general. But man, I mean, what other option do you really have if you're Michigan at this point? You got to lean on him and the defense and try to get other things going as well throughout the course of this. But no, I don't think you're wrong, Anthony. I think part of what your view is on this in terms of like looking ahead and, knowing what maybe you need to do better for the future and things like that. Part of it's just the nature of college football now, because you can kind of plug holes and turn over your roster a little bit more, I would imagine. And maybe it's more just for me, because I agree with you. I'm kind of looking at it through that lens as well. I think you have to at this point in evaluating the college football in 2025, 2026 coming up. But I mean, here's the thing. I think Michigan has run out of time to be Ohio State's equal or be better than Ohio State, but they haven't run out of time to get to that game with an opportunity to upset them. They weren't the better team last year when they beat them. They may not have been the better team without Blake Corum in 2022, but man, did they have the better coaches and they executed better on that day and they made a bunch of plays. They might not have been the better team in 2021 when they beat them up here, but they were much tougher, right? They embraced the environment and all these things, and they were upset wins. And when you win that game, then you deserve to say you were better, looking back at it. But, coming in, you were underdogs in all those and favored in 2023. So you're going to have to pull up an upset win over them if you want to beat them. And there's no problem with that if you get the job done. Still doesn't mean you shouldn't improve between now and November 29th, though, and win the next two games. I mean, it's of the utmost importance. And I think I said it last week, maybe it was on some sort of show, maybe it was with Jamie Morris. Like, winning is a little underrated in college football at times. Like, they moved on from Purdue. We're talking about it now. We're dissecting the corner route to Donovan McCulley and all this stuff that, that you take note of. But if they do win out, then it doesn't really matter. So, we got a show to do, and it's interesting to analyze all this and everything. But part of me is just curious to see what this is going to look like at Wrigley Field in 2 weeks. I know we can't fast forward, but, still a big opportunity ahead of this team.
I think because you're absolutely right. Like, you can hit your stride the next few weeks and position yourself. Like we said before, you want to finish that Maryland game and feel like, they're as ready as they can be. And then you roll the ball out there and see what happens. But I think the difference between this year's team and last year's team, and I think in the aggregate, this year's team is probably more talented, but especially with the injuries, like Rod Moore's been banged up. Justice Haynes, I don't know if we'll see him again. You hear surgery, and I have a hard time believing he's going to take the field in 26 days against Ohio State. This team is lacking these mistake-erasing star caliber players. And maybe Saturday night, Jordan Marshall was that to a T. Maybe he is that guy, but then, you worry about the workload with him, and now he's kind of the unquestioned guy there. You were able to beat Ohio State last year because you had guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant who single-handedly won you that game. Kalel Mullings, clutch runs helped win you that game. Do they have enough of those guys? And I think Bryce Underwood can be that. Will he get there this year? I don't know. There are times this year where I felt yes. Obviously, it's a bit of a downward trend at the moment, but I'm still not worried about him. This is all part of it with a young quarterback. Look how quickly the narrative is flipped with, how a guy like Arch Manning is playing right now late in the season. Not that it's a one-to-one comparison, but those are my concerns at the moment. From there, we'll see what happens. It's a much-needed bye week. Maybe you don't get Justice Haynes back, but it's huge for guys like Cole Sullivan, Jimmy Rolder, just getting as healthy as you can possibly be. Jay Sean Barham in that mix, Rod Moore in that mix as well. Just see how healthy you can get, have some good opportunity practices. Maybe there are some, Chris, to your point, some of the better players this year of guys that didn't affect the team as much in fall camp and then burst onto the scene or burst after the bye week. Maybe there's something there on that front with them as well.